right, we're going to talk about factoring a quadratic, and we are going to use factoring by grouping. So the process we are doing is factoring, and grouping is just one of the methods that we have for factoring. There's a couple of different methods, but grouping is what we're going to use today. So the first thing that we want to do is take a look at a quadratic. We're going to use 7x squared minus 17x plus 6 as our quadratic that we're going to look at. So we need to identify what our A, B, and C values are, because the first thing that we're going to do is find the factors of AC that add up to B. So A times C is 42, and B is negative 17. So we need to find the factors of AC, which is 42, that add up to negative 17. So we have a positive product, 42, which means we either multiply a positive times a positive or a negative times a negative. Either way, we have the same sign. Since we have the same sign to get a positive product and we have a negative sum, we're going to be looking at both of the factors to be negatives. So to do all of this, I'm going to do the prime factorization of 42 to help me build the factor tree. So I know I'm going to start with my smallest prime, which is 2. 2 goes into 42 21 times. No more 2's, so I go to the next one, 3 and 7. So I have my prime factorization, 2 times 3 times 7 equals 42, which will allow me to build a factor tree. So I have 1 and 42, 2 and 21, 3 and 7. Because 7 is prime, that makes this a little bit easier. So since both of them have to be negative, have I found one that works? Wait, hold on. What's 3 times 7? That's not 42. 2 times 21 is, but 3 times 7 isn't. 3 times 14 is. So instead of 3 times 7, we have to use 3 times 14. Okay, you can't just go straight from the prime factorization and say that 3 times 7 is a factor pair. It's 3 times the other two factors. So what is negative 3 combined with negative 14? Well, that adds up to negative 17. So we found the factors of AC that add up to B. So we've done our step 1, and step 2 is break it down. So we're going to take this middle term and we're going to break it down into negative 3x and negative 14x. And it's very important that we have those separated with a plus sign. So I have negative 3x plus negative 14x. And then I also have my 7x squared from before and my plus 6 from before. So since negative 3x and negative 14x add up to negative 17x, we're good there. And now we're going to do the name of the game here. So we're going to group into binomials. And now we're going to factor out the greatest common factor from each binomial. So the greatest common factor of 7x squared and negative 3x is actually x. And what's left behind from 7x squared after we factor an x out? 7x. What's left of negative 3x after we factor an x out is negative 3. And then I'm going to ask myself, what can I factor? What is the greatest common factor out of the second binomial? Negative 14x and positive 6 has a common factor of negative 2. If there's a negative here, whatever the sign of the leading term is in that second group, we're going to make sure that we factor that sign out with it. So I'm going to factor out the negative 2, and we're going to have positive 7x left over out of negative 14x when we factor that negative 2 out. And when we factor in negative 2 out of positive 6, we are left with negative 3. So we found the factors of AC that add up to B, we broke it down, we grouped into binomials, and we factored out the greatest common factor. Now, do you see what I see? A common factor that we can remove, leaving us with the other factor, leaving us with x minus 2. And we're done. We have factored 7x squared minus 17x plus 6 into its linear binomial factors.